It's finally here. Live action is tonight, Friday night, the first chance to really see the 2023-24 Tar Heels in action, both the men and women. But hey, let's pump the brakes a little. Don't jump to any conclusions too quickly.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Friday, October 13th. Coach, Friday the 13th, I don't know, but it is my son's 8th birthday. Happy birthday, Paxton. I'm so thankful for you, buddy. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shea. Joining me is our guy, Coach Bill Robinson, the head basketball coach of the Milligan University Buffaloes. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Coach, it's great to be together. We are on the day of live action. Finally, we get some action happening, and we got lots to talk about on the show today. We're going to look at the media day that Carolina had last Friday, some things we can learn from that. And of course, we got story time coming up with Coach Rob. But Coach, I want to get into live action first. You know, I miss the day and age when this was truly like Midnight Madness, when it was truly like the kickoff to practice. For those who aren't aware of like that kind of history with college basketball, could you just say a few words on that?
Midnight Madness, the origin was, hey, we can't start practice till October 15th. So at October 14th at midnight, we're just going to practice. And that was kind of the fun, it was internal. It was just, hey, this is just going to be about us. Then it turned into a show, like a Broadway show. It turned into the dance and the lights and everything else like that. And we've tried to do something similar here. I hate it. My guys know I hate it because we're getting to the gym and very oftentimes we don't get to practice that day. I know when Coach Williams was there, they had dance routines and they had stuff that they practiced the whole week leading up to Midnight Madness or Late Night with Roy. And I got a chance to go one time, and I just wanted to watch basketball, and it wasn't. It was a show, and I actually walked away a little bit disappointed. So I like live action better. As a coach, I like it better. As a fan, maybe not so much. But I think Hubert, this is more Hubert's personality to have it be more business, not a whole lot of nonsense, and just being able to work on basketball. And I think that's the way he would like it to be.
Honestly, that's what I'm here for too. And I appreciate Coach Williams' take on it. Like I often heard him talk about like he wanted to see what he could push the guys to do and to try out. And so I hear that. But yeah, I'm not here for cutesy stuff. I'm here to watch basketball being played. Always, some of the hosts that they've had have done a good job, others less so. But I think B-Dot does a good job with it. But like Stuart Scott was phenomenal at it. And around the nation, I mean, I love you calling it a Broadway production. Honestly, that's so true, Coach. And go ahead.
B-Dot's really bad at
what?
B-Dot is really bad at being the person sitting in front of you at the Final Four championship game. That's when you don't want B-Dot in your way because championship game. He sat right in front of me. He had his hat on, and every time there's a free throw, he's standing up on his chair and he's trying to get everybody. And again, you're just sitting there going, "Hey, I love the enthusiasm. I love you to death, dude. Just sit down so I can watch the game." But half the pictures I have on my phone from that night were the back of his head or him standing on a chair.
All right, B-Dot, come on, bro. Get out of Coach Rob's way next time. I love it. That's fantastic, Coach. And we see this all around the country, where coaches are bringing in rappers and doing all. I feel like I remember at Kansas one time, Bill Self had, I don't remember who it was, but there were like inappropriate dance routines going on with it. And it's like, what are we doing? So I'm with you. I really appreciate Coach Davis's move to making this more about just playing basketball. And from what I'm hearing, it sounds like this year's going to be even more basketball than it was even last year. And so really looking forward to the opportunity. And another thing folks should be aware of, Coach, would you talk about this is a major recruiting opportunity. Everyone's always clamoring to have their top targets come to their version of Midnight Madness, whatever they call it, whether it's, Late Night with Roy previously for us, now live action and whatever they call it, something in the fog at Kansas. Gonzaga has kennel craziness with a K, all that kind of stuff. Coach, why is this such a recruiting opportunity?
I think this is such a big event, and it's that, hey, if you're really going to take us seriously and we're going to be high on your list, then we've got to get you to this event. And those are big dates. I mean, it's great to have a football game to go to, or it's great to have, stuff on campus. But when you have that one big event, it's that first event. It's that really first big event that you have in the fall, and you want to put the red carpet out for these guys, and that's why it's such a big deal. It's that the cream of the crop, the very top guys you want to get there, and if they're there, then you feel like you got a pretty good shot at getting those kids.
And contextually for Carolina, especially in a year like this where the football team is so good, you look ahead at the schedule and you say, when do we have a home weekend for the football team and how can we align it with that? And so brilliantly, these recruits can be at Live Action Friday night, stick around for Saturday night when Carolina's hosting Miami in a massive football game. Miami's trying to forget the embarrassment of last Saturday against Georgia Tech. Coach, that was something.
That's something you want to get rid of that bad taste in your mouth right away. And I hope we don't let them. I hope we just stick it to them on Saturday. But it probably would have been a top 15 matchup for both teams if they had won that. Just kneel and you win, and this game would be even bigger. But the tailgating and being at the game with the guys and being able to walk into Kenan Stadium and with the team, those recruits seeing how those guys are treated, that's a big deal. And to just feel comfortable with those guys and get to hang out. And that recruiting thing, I mean, the best recruiters in any program are the players. The players are the ones who really are the best recruiters, and they're the ones who are going to say, hey, this is a great place to be. You need to come. Or, hey, we've really connected. We're really tight now. Hey, this could be a really cool thing for us to be here together. And, the coaches do a great job, obviously. We always want to think that it's about us as coaches, but our players really are the ones who dictate, more and more about how successful we are as recruiters.
Whew, yeah, man, such good stuff. And you even like what you talked about, getting around the guys and getting those experiences. I mean, we've heard the transfers now talking about how different it is at Carolina versus at Stanford for Harrison Ingram versus at West Virginia for James Okonkwo, et cetera. Talking about how, like, in Chapel Hill, you're a rock star everywhere you go, but in, at Stanford, it's like nobody knows you exist, basically. And so it's being on campus, getting all those experiences is massive. So huge recruiting weekend for Carolina. But also, let's talk about this actual live action event. Because, Coach, while we're all excited, I just want to, as I said in the cold open, pump the brakes a little bit, because this is still essentially just an exhibition. So, Coach, what level of appropriateness can we take away things that we see tonight? What can we take away, and how should we kind of temper what we're seeing?
Yeah, I think what I'm looking for is execution type things. They've been together all summer. They've I know first official practice, but they've been practicing for a while. You want to see guys who can make good decisions. You want to see the ball go in the basket, but this should be an intensity thing. We've heard all this talk, and I think it's great because we're doing the exact same thing with our guys, talking about tempo. What's the tempo going to be like? Can the guys go out there and really – it's hard to play a really fast game when you're playing against yourself because you don't have 10 guys to go deep. So let's see the tempo. Let's see the decision-making. Let's see guys making shots. Let's see make the decision-making, sharing the basketball. We keep hearing about how the chemistry is really good and the guys love each other. Well, are they going to share the basketball better than what they've had before? We've heard the red light, green light, yellow light. We've heard all the shooting, what the guys – let's see those great shooters really get opportunities to make some shots. So that's what I'm looking for. I'd love to see the guys have a crisp game where the offense is being run well. They're creating good shots for each other, but they're also sitting down, defending, and really getting after each other. It's not just a show. We're really out there trying to compete right now.
Interesting. And I mean, with that, like, I can't remember if it was live action last year or that like NIL exhibition they did, but I remember Bo May hit 2 threes in that, whichever one it was. And all of a sudden there was this, maybe it's kind of like Luke and it's more than he could just be a walk-on. And it was like, whoa. This is just an inter squad moment between these guys. Dudes are going to make plays and hit shots, and it's lots of fun, but we can't get all out of whack with that. So, Coach, let's say James Okonkwo, for example, I mentioned him. Let's say he comes out and has like 5 layups and hits a mid-range jumper. Does that change anything about what we should think about James Okonkwo's role this year? Or is that just a moment thing? Like how should we appropriately view something like that happening?
It doesn't change a thing. Because when reality comes down, if James has a game like that, he's still not going to be playing 20 minutes a game with Armando, going to play his 28 to 30. Creighton Lebo is a great shooter. He's going to make a shot or two. If he gets an open look, he's going to make that shot because he's a really good shooter. It does not mean he's going to, crack the rotation. That's just not reality. But these guys are good. Even the guys who don't play are good college players. They're going to make plays in practice. And there's practices where, Creighton may make 3 or 4 threes and look really, really good. The reality is he's still not better than the guards that are going to be playing the major minutes.
Perfect. Thank you, Coach. Now, I know, even that said, we're still going to have people freaking out and making wild expectations. So just know that here on this show, folks, we're trying to keep our expectations in check. Now, coming up in a minute, we want to look back to last Friday in the media day, some of the things we saw and heard from player interviews and Coach Davis. We'll get to all of that in just a second. But first, I need to tell you that this episode of Locked On Tar Heels is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's easy to create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs, and then you just add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your profile to spread the news that you're hiring. After that, you can use simple tools like screening questions to make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skill set and experience so you can prioritize who you'd like to interview and ultimately hire. Honestly, hiring the right team member is going to have a positive and measurable impact on your business. So all of this is why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Well, Coach and I touched on that Carolina-Miami game coming up on Saturday night. To help get you ready for it, make sure you tune into Locked On College Football Kickoff Live today from 11 a.m. till noon Eastern right here on the Locked On YouTube page. Make sure you check it out. Locked On College Football Kickoff Live coming up today. Coach, last Friday, a week ago today, we had media days. Now, this was not the ACC media days. This was Carolina specific, where Carolina opened up practice, a shortened practice to the media to be able to take some footage, and then made all 14 players, all 11 scholarship players and the 3 walk-ons available to the media to be able to talk to. Coach Davis himself had a press conference. And so there's always lots of nuggets we're looking for. We're trying to read between the lines. What are you saying? What are you not saying? What's the subtext? Why is this guy doing this? Why isn't that guy? All of this randomness because we're just thirsting for information. And Coach, I think the biggest thing that a lot of people were looking at and thinking about, and we talked about it on the show earlier this week, but I want to get your take on this as a coach. One of the things with Carolina is you have the white team, that's your 5 starters, and you got the blue team, that is the second unit, the walk-ons, other guys. And what we saw from that practice was that the white team was RJ Davis, as expected, Armando Bacot, as expected, Harrison Ingram, as expected, and Cormac Ryan, as expected. But I think the one that a lot of people expect to see in white that they didn't was Elliot Cadeau, who was in a blue jersey with that second team. Meanwhile, Paxson Wojcik, whom you've talked about, has looked really good, fierce competitor, brings a lot to the table, was the 5th guy in white. So, Coach, the question is, similar to what we just talked about with live action, how much can we read to that as, on one extreme, Elliot Cadeau, if the season started today, would not be a starter, or, on the other hand, maybe that's just what that moment was. You've got Seth Trimble on the sidelines injured, maybe competitive balance wants us to have Elliot and RJ on opposite sides. What is appropriate for us to take away from a moment like that?
First thing, Paxson Wojcik's my guy. We talked about that early on. We connected this summer. I'd never met him before, but he's the one guy on the team I have his cell number. We'll text a little bit here and there. he has a good, practice or good game, whatever, I'll just be able to shoot a text to him, say, hey, congrats, keep it going. So I love him to death. I don't see any world where he's a starter. And I think this is just about competitive balance in practice. If Seth is there and he's healthy, then I think, maybe Elliot does start on the white team. But with that being said, you got to have guys going against each other. Iron sharpens iron. We know that. So you get an opportunity for RJ to play against Elliot. That makes both of those guys better every day. So the more that they can play against each other, they do have to play together some. Obviously, we're going to have to see how that relationship works. But I think it's good for them to be able to go at each other and practice every day. So I do think that's a good sign that Paxson he's got to be shooting better. He's got to be playing well for him to be able to be moved up to that. So I think that's a good thing too. I think Elliot's got to continue to work to earn that. And I think that's part of it too. I think he's got to earn it. Hubert's I think he's to the point where those guys are going to have to, he's not going to give anything. Those guys are going to have to earn everything. I think Elliot's still in that process of earning that starting spot.
Okay, great information. It's just good to hear, like, as a coach, how are you doing those kind of things? And, I tried to not sensationalize it earlier in the week, and I hope for those of you listening and watching that we didn't. I just wanted to say, hey, we all need to be aware of the possibility that could be a thing where we might not see Elliot trot right off the bench to begin things. You just need to be aware that is more. There's more than a 0% chance that that's a thing. But in some of Elliot's interviews, we did hear him talk about that part of him reclassifying was to take the pressure off of this year being a year where he had to get it all done, be in and be out and be gone. And the possibility, he said it with his own mouth, I'm on something of a 2-year plan here. And if I get to the end of this year and I'm not ready, I'm not going. I would stay for a second year. That would be awesome. I'd get to play with Ian and Drake, and being Ian Jackson and Drake Powell. And that could be good. Coach, beyond just how awesome would that be to have Elliot Cadeau for 2 years, what does that tell you about the psyche of this young man?
I think it shows the maturity level he's at. He's got a great family, and I know he's been raised the right way, and I think it's exciting to think about him being there for 2 years. Carolina's different, again, in a good way. They have so many connections at the NBA level. You got a Buzz Peterson who's with the Hornets. You've got, all those type of connections with high level, executives. If Elliot finds out, hey, from what everybody's saying, after the year's over, you're going to be a second round draft pick, he can always come back. Marvin Williams didn't want to leave. He didn't want to leave Carolina after 1 year. But when Roy Williams says all the information I've gathered from all these different people, you're going to be a top 3 pick at worst, he had to go. And I think Elliot will do the same thing. I think Carolina will, at the end of the year, they'll be able to go and get all this information from all the NBA teams. They'll get a very clear picture of where he might go. And if he's not happy with it, come back. And I think that's a great option. And there's a lot worse places to be than Chapel Hill for a couple of years. And I think the guys have experienced that recently too.
And especially this day and age with NIL, where a lot of times you're going to make more money being a Tar Heel than a second round draft pick buried in the G League, right? And so that's a very real thing. And let's also not forget, RJ has a COVID year of eligibility that he could come back, and you could have that same backcourt next year if you wanted to. Also, Coach, you saying that about Marvin, I'm getting these images in my head now of an 05-06 backcourt or front court, of Tyler Hansborough and Marvin Williams. Come on, man. That would have been absolutely silly. Would have loved to have seen that.
That would have been intense. And that would have been, talk about the kid, because that's what they called Marvin the Kid. He's just so talented. And to put he and Tyler together, that would have been an incredible mix. But, back to now, just seeing RJ and Elliot, I think they're going to play really well together. I anticipate that. And how much better would they play a year from now together? So that's a reality that's not that far. I could see that happening. And I think the last NBA mock draft I saw had Elliot around 25 or somewhere in that range. And maybe even say, even if that were the case and he was a first round pick, maybe I just having fun. And that's part of what Tyler said. Tyler he wanted to come back for the 4th year. He was having a good time. He's a college kid, and he was, just be around his friends and Bobby Frazier and hanging out and just playing ping pong in the locker room. That's what they just love, doing stupid stuff like that. And he knew that once you go, life changes. You become an adult, and you can't go back. And I think they just enjoyed that time. I think Elliot was going to be I hope he finds the same type of experiences.
Yeah, I hope so too. And that's a great point about even at the tail end of the first round, it might his play might be lottery or come back, right? Like if that's what you're thinking, that makes a ton of sense to me. Now,
Love
Coach,
it.
any other before we move on to story time, any other takeaways from you, either from any of the interviews, any of the practice footage we've seen, any of the Coach Davis's press conference, anything else?
The really encouraging thing for me, Hubert talked a lot about the red, yellow, green when it came to shooting the basketball, and he came right out and said, "My three guys that are green are RJ, Cormac, and Paxson." To me, that was a huge thing for me to see Paxson be able to get that green because I did get to see him practice once this fall. He didn't shoot the ball particularly well that day. He made a couple, but he didn't shoot it great. That makes me feel like he must have some days where he's been shooting the ball really well. And we know Cormac can shoot it. And if Cormac misses a couple in a row, he's going to keep taking it. He knows that he's going to get hot at some point. But it also makes me realize that maybe Harrison Ingram's not going to have a green light, and Elliot might not have a green light. Those guys may be yellow lights, and shot selection is going to be a little bit more conservative, maybe the best way to look at it than what it has been the last couple of years. That they're going to value the basketball a little bit more, and part of what Coach Davis said too is that those guys who have the green light know what's a good shot. They know what's a bad shot. And they're not going to abuse that green light in a way. Honestly, you and I might. Man, if we had the double green light like Hubert had, we were going to take that shot regardless. If we get it off, it's a good shot. And so that's encouraging to me, knowing that those guys have the green light, but they also know how to use the green light.
I love it. Great insight, Coach. Yes, it's going to be fun to watch and see those guys just get it up. That shooting trio, but in particular, who we expect to kind of be the starting two of those green lights, RJ and Cormac, could be a lot of fun. Man, I can't wait to see it in live action tonight, Friday. We'll see how that goes. Now, of course, we got to get to story time with Coach Rob. That's why you're all here hanging out to hear what Coach's story at the end of the day is. We're going to get to that in just a second. But first, I need to tell you that this episode of Locked on Tar Heels is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is super easy to use, and you can bet on all sorts of stuff: spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Folks, joined today on Locked on Tar Heels by Coach Bill Robinson, the head coach of the Milligan University Buffaloes in Northeast Tennessee. Beautiful this time of year. I'm so very jealous of all those wonderful leaves and color that you're seeing right now, Coach. But Coach is a 2-decade veteran of the Carolina Summer Basketball Camp, has a treasure trove of stories in this man's noggin. And he is in the process of writing a book detailing and chronicling all sorts of these stories. And each week he shares one of those with us here on the show. So Coach, regale us with today's story.
We're going to go real quick. 2 stories about Coach Dean Smith and the legend that he is. And he had this godlike following. People just looked at him as being godlike. And of course we know he wasn't. He's just a man, but yet he had this great reputation. At camp one year at Githin's gym, which was the furthest gym away from campus, the last morning the lights would not come on. They couldn't figure out how to get the lights on in the gym, and they had people from school there and everything. There's just nothing coming on, and they knew that Coach Smith was always coming to his gym first, so they were desperate to get lights on, because if they couldn't get the lights on, they couldn't play that morning. And Coach Smith showed up and there were no lights on, and they couldn't figure it out. And they've been looking for 30 minutes trying to figure it out. Well, as soon as Coach Smith walked into the gym, they're like, oh no, we're all going to get fired. There's no lights. Coach Smith walks in the hallway and the lights come on. And it was just one of those, the legend of Dean Smith. You know, nobody can turn the lights on, but he walks in and the lights come on. So that was the big joke, that he had the power to be able to get the lights on when nobody else did. I got to meet a guy named Thomas Kepley. Thomas and his kids came to Montrose Camp, and we became friends, and they became very deeply involved in Montrose Camp and stayed as volunteers afterwards. And when he heard about the book, he said, I got a story you need to put in the book. And I said, great, tell me about it. Well, he was a camper at 11 years old, and he had the opportunity to be in Carolina camp as a young kid. Now, Thomas is older than I am. So this is probably, late 70s, mid 70s, somewhere in that range. Well, he had the opportunity to be on the Kansas Jayhawks in his gym. And Thomas's dad was casual friends with Coach Smith. Coach Smith came by to see where Thomas was because it's one of his buddies' little kids, and saw that he was on the Jayhawks. Well, they had not won a game all week, and it was the last day before the tournament, the following day. And he said, hey, Thomas, how you doing? He said, oh, Coach, I'm doing well. My team's not very good. We haven't won a game yet. He said, well, let me watch you guys for a little bit. So Dean Smith kind of stood there and watched game and watched where all in halftime, he said, okay, guys, let's try this. I'm going to put this guy over here and put this guy over here. And what's going to happen is, and he started coaching this little 11-year-old team, and they lost that game, but they used what he had learned the next day when the tournament started, and he led them to a championship. They won the whole league, even though they hadn't won a game all week. He took a little piece here and there and told them what was going to happen during the games, and they ended up winning the championship that week. And Thomas, now as an almost 60-year-old man, looks back at that, and he could see how brilliant this guy was as a coach. He could see the game differently, and nobody else could have done that. And they followed whatever he said. Whatever he said, they did, and they ended up winning it all. And he still thinks, just how brilliant and how simple, and he even just caring about camp kids. And, oh, you haven't won a game all week. Let's see how we can, help you guys at least be able to experience some success during camp. So that's who Coach Smith was, and that's why he's the legend that we all love so much.
It's a classic Dean Smith story. Of course that happened. I mean, it just makes me think of at the highest levels at Carolina, of huddles late in the game that seemed unwinnable. And it's like, all right, boys, stick with me, do what I tell you to do, and we are going to win this basketball game. It's like that, but with 11-year-olds, right? Like, that's insane, Coach.
It's amazing. So he was unlike anybody we'll ever see again. And, we were fortunate as Carolina fans to have him be part of us.
Amen. Well said. Friends, that's it for today's episode of Locked On Tar Heels. In fact, that's it for this week of Locked On Tar Heels. Make sure you tune in to catch all our recap content from the Miami game on Saturday. Obviously, we'll talk about live action next week coming out of all of that. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Heels. Follow Coach at Coach Rob Buffs. You can follow me at Isaac Shade. If you want to have more in-depth conversation, shoot us an email, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. You can submit questions or thoughts, or maybe you just want to talk about something. I don't even know. You can come join our Discord community where we have lots of great conversation. The links are in the show notes, both on audio and video formats. Speaking of which, if you would, subscribe to the show on video or audio, whichever you're hanging out on. And then smash the like button for those of you watching so we know you're here. And we'd love your comments on today's show. What do you think about live action? What, just maybe some of your Dean Smith thoughts, any of that would be great. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Want to thank you everydayers for joining us. We'll be back on Monday, but until then, peace.